It's an interesting challenge to do this in an hour because there's many differing levels present here today. We've got some builders with us who obviously know the game pretty well. I see some past investors who are here as well who may know a little more than others. But today, we're going to try our best to educate those who don't know too much. So we'll be keeping it pretty high level. And at the end of this hour discussion, I'm confident that when you leave this room, you will know more than most sales professionals do about pre-construction condos. And if you don't, there's a 100% money-back guarantee, so just come find me. So we're going to start today's discussion of, first of all, why we're even doing this. And we're going to move on to how a builder actually opens shop on a high-rise building. Then this question, which is the million-dollar question: who really gets the best deal on a high-rise project? And then we're going to talk about the market in general. And here it is. This is a question I'm asked all the time. Are there too many condos in Toronto? We're going to talk about that in detail. We're going to talk about how the winners think about and invest in condos. We're going to talk about the rental market. And we're going to talk about why condo investments are unique. And of course, the dangers of investing in high-rise condos. Anybody recognize this man? Shout it out if you know. No? How about this man? How about this man? No, it's not my dad. Who? Very close. The last one is Tom Vu. The gentleman in the middle is Carlton Sheets. And the first gentleman on the very far left is Russ Whitney. Do you recognize those names? Well, what they all have in common is that they are real estate experts, specialists. And they all appeared when the market got hot. What they also all shared in common is that they actually knew very little about real estate. They were there more to sell you their programs, their seminars, their CDs, actually tapes for some of them when they came out, and it wasn't very good information. Sadly, when the market gets hot, that happens. These experts and specialists, they appear out of nowhere. I think we can all agree, as little as some of you may know about the pre-construction condo field, that the market is hot. And these specialists and these experts are out in droves. They hold seminars, workshops, free events all throughout the city and online. And they claim to be offering you something of value at no cost. But of course, we all know there's no such thing as a free lunch. Why are we doing this? Well, one of the reasons we're doing this is to caution you on these experts. They are everywhere, and many of them have been in the market for less than 5 years. And we're going to talk about why that's concerning a little bit later. They're driven less by knowledge and expertise and more by high commissions. And here's the other scary part. Some of these people are unlicensed. You don't need a real estate license to practice in new condo developments. There's a lot of bad information going out there as well. And bad information can lead to financial ruin when it comes to this type of an investment at this dollar level. You need to educate yourself before investing in condos, and that's another goal we have here today for you. And the third reason we're doing this is it's all about loyalty. True experts in this field have been around a while for it, and the biggest testament to their success is that they still work with those same investors they did way back then. We believe in putting the client's best interest first, especially when it comes to this sort of a transaction, because there's a lot of bad information out there, as we said. Put your interest first. That's how you have long-term success in this field. It's no different, and that's why we're here today. We're going to educate you so you can make an informed decision. Look familiar? Yeah? Seen it all over the city the last 10 years, haven't we? We need to talk about how a builder actually opens shop on a high-rise project, okay? Got a couple builders here, so shout if you think I'm wrong. There's 3 ways that a builder actually distributes their units to the purchaser. Only three. One way, and it's very rare for a high-rise new condo development, is direct to the public. Second way is through a registered salesperson to the public, or from the builder direct to the public. Now this is a very common arrangement. And the third way is through an in-house marketing company or an in-house brokerage or some other third party to the real estate agent to the public, or from the in-house brokerage itself direct to the public. That's it. Those are the only three ways. Contrary to popular belief, the way in which a builder decides to sell these units has no bearing on who actually gets first access and best pricing. Now that's counterintuitive for a lot of people who don't know this field, because they think, well, if I go direct to the factory, shouldn't I get the best deal? It's not how it works in pre-construction condos, and let me explain why. If you're lining up like this around the building at a presentation center, and I remember doing this 12 years ago, I waited all night in the rain to get a project. I didn't have to, I realized later. Or if you're seeing the project advertised here in any of the newspapers or over here in any magazine, TV, radio, you've probably missed the boat on best pricing and first access. To understand who actually does get the best deal, we need to put ourselves into the builder's position, get inside their heads a little bit, and understand where they're coming from. The number one thing we need to know is that it takes big bucks to develop. It's not just about buying the land and putting up the building. There's all sorts of cost involved in this transaction. And it's way too much of a financial risk for any builder to put out of pocket, or it's very rare. So the builder needs to go to a bank, and the bank says to the builder, show me the money. They want to see 70% sales on paper before they say, here you go, here's the money for construction. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So we need to understand something. As soon as the builder says, I'm selling units, the time is ticking. They need to sell these units as quickly as possible. There's other costs involved. There's marketing costs, there's sales staff, there's the sales center being open, there's all sorts of expenses that are running as soon as they open shop. Quickly as possible, but they also need to do it as profitably as possible. Okay? That's a key point to understanding who gets first access. They need to make money. So it's in their best interest, because they need to make money, they have to be clever and make everybody think they're getting first access and best pricing. Does that make sense to everybody? It's good for business, right? Everyone thinks they're getting the best deal, they're more likely to sign. The reality is very few people actually do. Now, I've broken this down into 4 stages, as you can see here. This isn't set in stone. I've seen projects with up to 20 stages. These are 4 general stages that I've seen in my experience, and it does differ from time to time. Stage 1, true first access. I think that's pretty obvious that you get first crack, you're going to get first pick at units, and usually the best price. What most people don't understand, though, is that this is done very, very quietly. Okay? It's not advertised. You won't see it on the TV, you won't hear about it on radio, and you probably won't see it on Kijiji. Even if it were there, the builder would not like that very much. And it almost always goes to people the builder has worked with in the past. Usually they want to sell about 25 to 30% of the units here. This differs greatly, but they want to get the ball rolling on the sales. Okay, they want to see how the market's going to receive this. And at the end of this stage, the prices go up. Want to make more money. That brings us to stage 2, and this is usually where you hear about terms like the VIPs and the platinums and the VIPs and all sorts of terminology thrown onto it. There's usually some sort of a launch event, a lunch, valet parking. You invite a bunch of salespeople to the sales center, and they release the marketing materials, and they tell them, you're getting first access to this project for your clients. The goal here is to sell another 20 to 30%. And of course, at the end of this, the price goes up. So really, by the end of stage 2, you're looking at about anywhere from 50 to 60% sold on paper. Which brings us to stage 3. This opens up to the public. It's open to all real estate agents. And there's usually a very nice sales center at this point with shiny, bright marketing materials. Just so you know, sometimes in stage 1, there's no marketing book. There's no sales center. Sometimes sales are done in a hotel conference room. Sometimes they're done at an office 50 kilometers away from the site. Not the case usually by stage 3. Everything is ready to go. And the whole goal here is to hit 70% of sales. That's the whole goal of this stage. And once they do, it's gravy time. I'm going to call stage 4 gravy stage. I tried to even make it the color of gravy. Didn't really show very well, but thank you. Stage 4 means the builder can relax. 70%, they get the construction financing. It's okay to wait out for higher prices. And in fact, it's not uncommon to see a builder raise prices anticipating when the building will actually be completed 3-4 years down the road. So you may see a building go up 15% in price as soon as they hit stage 4. They are absolutely not in a rush to sell at this point. So who actually gets the best deal or first access? I think first access is pretty obvious, right? Stage 1. And they usually get the best deal. But there's a lesser known spot that many of you may not know about where you can even get a better deal. And it's over here, in between stage 3 and stage 4. Sometimes a builder actually gets stuck. They haven't quite hit that 70%. They may be 10, 12, 15 sales short of that mark. So what do? They can't release that information publicly and say, hey, guys, everyone, I need 10 more sales, so we're going to discount these last 10 units. Then everybody who bought in stage 2, 3, they're going to be upset and expect the price adjustment. So what they do is they make a quiet call to the people who had first access. And they say, hey, Johnny, I need you to sell 10 more units for me. What's it going to take? It's not advertised, this stuff. And if you go to the sales center directly, they're going to have a separate price list for you. Then they provide the people they're calling. Does that make sense to everybody? These two groups of buyers definitely get the best deal. And that's how units are distributed. Anybody have a Costco membership here? Nice. Anybody? Yeah? Quite a few people. I used to have one. I gave it up about 3 years ago. And I remember distinctly the last purchase I made at Costco. It was this giant industrial-sized peanut butter. And it came in a 3-pack. And I remember doing the math while I was standing there going, oh, Jesus, it'd be stupid not to buy this. It took me 4.5 years to finish the peanut butter. And by the 3rd jar, it wasn't tasting all that great. First access, good deals, they only matter on something that's worth something to you, that brings value to the table. So really, who cares who's getting first access or best pricing on something that's not going to provide you with that value? That's a problem, I think, in pre-construction condos a lot today, is people get wrapped up in the hype. They say, oh, there's a new hot project coming out. But there's very little knowledge about what that project will actually do in terms of a performance for your investment. So that's what we want to educate you with here today, is give you a little bit of knowledge to understand how to find that value for yourself. And that we can't do that unless we start with a general discussion of the market. That's right, you want to help to find the BS, because there's a lot of bad information out there. So general knowledge is going to help you out. And the first question we need to talk about is how the general market is doing. We have a lot of realtors in this room. How is the market? Great. The first answer. Thank you. What else? Bad? About to crash? Well, here's a snapshot for you. That's how the market is. Those are your average GTA real estate prices, not single-family residential or condo. Your average GTA real estate prices since 1980 all the way up to 2012 at the very end. And I know you're thinking, well, 2012 was a long time ago. Market has shifted. So here's the missing information courtesy of the Toronto Real Estate Board, accounting for those missing months all the way from January 2013 until November 1st, 2014. Moving them onto the graph, you can see them over here. That's a rough estimate of what it would look like on that chart. So there you go. There you go, a snapshot of the last 35 years in the GTA real estate market. Now, when we're talking about where the market is today, a lot of people love to look at this period. Anybody remember this? 1985 to 1989, 84 to 89? What is that? That represents, sorry? That's right, the biggest real estate crash in our city's history happened here in 1989. Okay? Everyone looks at this value over here, this roller coaster ride, and they think, well, we're due, right? History repeats itself. We're due for a crash. Is that true? Well, let's take a closer look at the numbers. The average home price in 1984 was $102,318. In 1989, that had risen to $273,698. That's an increase of 167% over a 5-year period. Year over year, that works out to 22%. That's what we call a real estate bubble, and it's no surprise that that bubble popped. It's not a healthy growth. Where are we today? In 2010, the average GTA property price was $430,930. By January 2015, it was $562,504. That represents an increase of 30% over a 5-year period. In other words, 6% per year growth. 22, 6. You make your own judgment call. Now, of course, I don't have a crystal ball. Nobody does, so we never know what the market's going to do. We can only look at that information and take educated guesses. We can also take a look at what's been going on a little more specifically throughout that time. Everyone looks at that big, sharp increase and they think, well, it's just been this nonstop torrid growth pattern. That's not necessarily true. We can look over here in the winter of 2008, going into 2009, there was a very significant housing correction. It hasn't been this torrid growth pattern that people think it is. And I'm not an economist, but this blue line over here represents your comparison of the housing market, the red line being your GDP. Look what happened in 84 to 89. Went way away from what was a healthy growth. Usually those two figures are somewhat in line. You can see here, we're not quite there. Another consideration we have to look at is the affordability. In 1989, at its peak, 55% of household income was going towards your housing payment. That includes your mortgage, your utilities, your maintenance, etc. Despite popular belief, in 2014, that level sits at 34%. Now, I know there's areas of the city where that's probably much higher, maybe the beaches, Junction, where people are buying homes they can maybe not necessarily afford, but on a general scale, 34% is certainly a far cry from 55. And there's other considerations. I mean, I can go on this topic for a long time. It's not the focus of our discussion today, but there's Greenbelt legislation. For those who don't know, you could basically only build up. Okay, it's an effort to curb urban sprawl. There's a booming GTA population, which we're going to discuss in a little bit more detail later. And interest rates are expected to stay low. It's a far cry from the 21% that we saw in the 80s. It's at 2.5, I believe, today, and it's forecasted to stay relatively low in the next few years. That brings us to a more specific question. Are there too many condos in Toronto? Well, before we move on, we need to discuss one thing, and that is there's an end user hat that you can wear to talk about condos, where you speculate on area and the area you grew up in. Maybe you like the views, maybe you think you want to be closer to your family. These are considerations for the end user hat. And of course, there's the investment hat, which leaves emotion out of it, speculation out of it. This is all based on numbers, okay? That's the hat we need to wear today. Fair? And we'll move on. Are there too many condos in Toronto? Yes. Yes, there are. Okay, thanks for coming. Have a good night. Let's talk a little bit more in detail of why I think there are. Statistics are courtesy of RealNet. For those of you who can't see, I'll just read out some of these figures for you. This green bar over here in the bottom right corner represents a record number of completions in 2014. That number is 19,722 high-rise completions introduced to the GTA market in 2014. It is an all-time record. More concerning for some people is this figure over here, the yellow line representing units under construction, and it's at 52,777. Globe and Mail loves to write, Toronto Star loves to write articles about this, saying, look how many condos are coming to Toronto. Wow, this is crazy, the market has to crash. And I can't really blame them, because if I were to talk about Maseratis, how many people really does that affect in here? If I were to talk about Rolexes, how many people does that affect in here? But if I'm going to talk about housing, well, that affects everybody, right? But we need to take this 52,777 number and dissect it a little bit. Ignore the red line, ignore the green line. We're concentrating about yellow over here, which represents high-rise figures. That's the inventory stat, and that number in 2014 sits at 20,502. That means that out of that 52,777 units under construction, 32,275 are sold. And remember, too, we discussed earlier that a builder, once they hit 70% and they get their financing from the bank, they don't mind. They're not in a rush. So much of that inventory over here is because the builders priced it high. The other consideration we have to have is that this 52,777 units, that's not coming out next year. Our city infrastructure can't handle much more than 20,000 units coming to the marketplace. There's too much red tape. We don't even have enough cranes. It's phased in over the next 3 or 4 years. So every time you hear these doom and gloom articles or about them, take it with a grain of salt. You know a lot more than they do about this. Last year was actually the first year in 6 years that we had demand outpace supply for new condo developments. And next year, there's another 20,000 completions expected to come in 2015. Let's take a closer look, courtesy of Urban Nation. Out of those units, 20,000 to come, about 15,000 are expected to come to the 416. York, Peel, Halton, and Durham account for the other 5,000. Recognize this? Yell it out. It's a coach purse, right? What about this? It's a Chanel purse. Anybody know the difference? See some of the ladies nodding heavily. Some of the guys are like, I don't know. Well, there's a drastic difference, would you agree, between a Coach purse and a Chanel purse? Would it be fair then to say, hey, there's too many purses at Yorkdale, just group them all together? Why do we do this for condos? It's amazing to me out there. I'm going to take a condo at Jane and Finch. Is that the same as a condo in your downtown west submarket? The answer is pretty obvious. Does this look familiar to anybody? I hope it does. Right. All of your answers to your investment questions, because when you analyze an investment correctly, it pops off the page. It becomes very obvious what's a good investment and what's not a good investment. And your answers lie in here. It's your holy Bible of investment analysis. All you need to find is somebody who can translate that for you. Get that data out of there for you. Why? Because numbers don't lie. And this is a very objective business we're in when you're looking at a condo investment analysis. Out of the 15,000 units to come, and this is pretty standard year over year, there's only ever 10 good projects that come out. Some years are less. 2013 was significantly less. But when you run the numbers and you do a bit of analysis, that's usually how it breaks down. And just guessing where it's going to go this year, that's about the same. You've got about 10 good projects coming this year. It's not this huge influx coming to the market that people think. Just don't buy the bad ones. So let's take a closer look at the numbers. Excuse me. Maybe we can take an example. Assuming you want to invest in a 2-bedroom condo unit down the road. This is a very popular type of investment choice now. It's gaining popularity out there. You don't know where you should invest. You're sort of stuck between two areas. You've heard some good things about these areas. Number one, let's say I recommended it to you, is over here in the downtown west submarket. It includes West Queen West, Liberty Village. It's a very well-known area, and it's from a reputable builder. An expert you heard about is recommending a project near Yorkdale Mall. It's very popular, low prices, reputable builder, great potential, advertising the lack of rental supply in the area, and this park revitalization that's scheduled, and a subway expansion has been proposed. All sorts of good stuff planned. So which one would you invest in? On the left-hand side, we have the Downtown West project. It's priced at $399,000, 735 square feet, 2-bedroom, 2-washroom, no parking. Occupancy is 2019, and then again, it's from a reputable builder. On the other side, we've got the Yorkdale condo. It's $100,000 less. It's $299,000. Same size, 735 square feet, 2-bedroom, 2-washroom. Occupancy is 2019. Once again, it's a reputable builder. Which one do we buy? Right, not enough information, but amazingly, people make decisions like this. Put on your investor hat, please, because if you bought a condo at Yorkdale, I'm not saying that's bad, okay? You may have a personal reason for it. Maybe you love shopping. Some people love shopping, want to be near the mall. Put on that hat. Here's how you crunch the numbers, though. You draw a map. First, we did it for the Downtown West market. Draw a little shape around the immediate area where the project is located. And I look back to a year, January 1st, 2014, and I look for all firm leases. There's many categories that you're analyzing an investment on, but for my analysis, it's number one is your leases. Because that's going to carry your investment through. We draw that perimeter around. We limit it at 2-bedroom, 2-washroom product, and you put all of the results into a spreadsheet. We do the same for Yorkdale. Draw a perimeter around the immediate area, cap it from January 1st until now, 2-bedroom, 2-washroom product, and we put it all into a spreadsheet. That takes time, but once it's there, you make your adjustments. You account for parking, locker, lack thereof. Maybe there's some other exceptional cases, but you get averages, and you tabulate your data. And it takes pages and pages, and it takes hours and hours to do this. But what you're left with is summarized data. And in the case of the Queen West example, what we have here in that time period from January 1st to December 31st, 2014, is 191 firm leases for 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom product. Of the 191 firm leases, 8 lasted over 30 days on the market. In other words, 183 of them lasted less than a month on the market. All of those 8 that lasted longer than 30 days were listed above the average. Calculate the average when you break down the price per square foot on the rents. 12 of the 191 firm leases went for less than 96% of asking. All of those 12 were listed high. Basically, when we look at it, 90% of all of the listings since January 1st, 2014 went for 96% of asking or more and leased in under 30 days. How did Yorkdale fare? Well, there were 18 firm leases for 2-bedroom, 2-bath in the same time period. 6 of those 18 lasted longer than 30 days on the market. 1 of those 6 was listed high. 7 of those 18 firm leases went for less than 96%. The summary shows 28% of all listings went for 96% of asking or more and leased in under 30 days. In other words, 72% just didn't make the grade. You can do this time in and time out for these investment areas that are popping up all over the place. And I don't mean to single out Yorkdale because there's a lot of them coming out there. And you'll see the same results. How does that impact your investment? Deep. Very deeply. Vacant rents on your investment equals disaster. It's the number one category. 1 month vacant is negative 8.5% on your income. 2 months, 17%. 3 months, get out. Just get out. Your investment should never be vacant for that long. I don't care if you've got turnaround over client from client, because when you look at the good areas, it doesn't happen. The dollar you pay, this is key for your investment portfolio going forward. The dollar you pay is not anywhere close to as important as the percentage returns you get on that investment. And rentability is the number one factor when you're considering investment analysis. It's not price per square foot, like people think. I don't want to get too intricate on this now, and as I said, I want to keep this under an hour. We could talk for hours about the cash flow analysis alone, and if that's something you're interested in, please email me. I'd be more than happy to have another seminar in the future to discuss this. But let's take a closer look at the numbers. Let's say you went ahead with this purchase of a 2-bedroom unit in the west, downtown west submarket. It's a 2-bedroom product, very quickly, $399, square footage $735, 25% deposit for a conventional mortgage, brings you just shy of $100,000. That means the mortgage is roughly $300,000. Interest rates are what? 2.5%, roughly. So let's say we got a 2.8% 5-year close. That's realistic, right? Doesn't matter if it isn't because it's on the slide. Amortization is 25 years. Monthly payment brings it to about $1,400, just shy. 53 cents maintenance fee brings you to $390 a month. And your property tax estimated at 0.7%. Long story short, $233 a month. In other words, your carrying cost for this unit, all in, is about $2,000, just over. The estimated rent is $3 per square foot based on our analysis. That means you're expected to bring in a rent of $2,200. Now, looking at those numbers, rent income of $26,400, annual expenses of $24,000 and change, that's a rent income of only a couple grand a year. You just paid $399,000. Told you this was a good investment, right? And that's not even including some of the closing costs that are involved with finishing and completing on a new condo development. That's a lousy return of 0.5%. You think I'm nuts? And what if interest rates go up? Okay, we've discussed they're not supposed to go up, but we never know what could happen. They could very well climb in the next few years. And what if they did? Well, let's assume they go up 2%. Let's operate with a 4.8% interest rate. That brings our monthly payment to now over $1,700, and our total carrying cost is over $2,300. Rent stays the same. You'd be losing money, right? Rent's $2,200, my carrying costs are $2,329. I'm cash negative at $129 a month. That's $1,500 a year I'm losing on this investment. Okay, let's just step back and analyze this a little bit more in depth. It's not time to panic. Think about the figures a little bit more. $2,200, $2,329, cash negative, $129. Your mortgage payment is $1,700, blended, right? Blended means you pay interest and principal. Principal repaid in your first 5-year term is actually $35,000 and change. That works out over the 60 months, $588 a month. Now, whether somebody's handing you $588 or paying down your bill owing by putting it into your bank of $588, what's the difference? Money's money to me. It doesn't matter how it's being paid. That actually leaves you with $459 a month. It's amazing. We can't just look at the cash flow analysis in this case where cash is not king. It's the net effect of your equity. What if the market crashes, though? I think I've shown you some information which, gives us some perspective on the situation, but we never know. What if the market were to crash? Well, let's assume the worst case scenario that ever happened, 1989. I know it's an average of 23% lost in 7 years, and in some areas it was harder hit, but let's take the average. That means our $399,000 investment we've lost 23% on, brings the value down $91,000, so it's only worth $307,000 on paper. If you want to lose money if this ever happens, go ahead, sell it, panic. And you'll guarantee yourself to have lost that money. But the winners relax. In fact, what they do when the market bottoms out is they often find opportunity. A lot of people made a lot of money when the market crashed in 1989. But it wasn't the people who sold. Everyone loves to look at this red line when they talk about the market crash, right? We lost 23%. Few people, though, like to look at this line, the blue line, over 15 years, the big picture, the long-term picture. Well, that's 7% increase. How come nobody talks about that in the newspaper articles? If you hang on to this investment, that's the worst real estate crash in our history, and it made 7% in 15 years. Can you name me a stock we can say that about? That means if you hang on to your property over that 15-year period, you wait out the panic period, your property is going to go from $399,000 on paper to $427,000 on paper. And what happens to rents when the market crashes? When the market crashes, everyone thinks, oh, I don't want to buy, I don't want to buy. You see, these guys were right. So what do? They rent. What happens to rents? They go up. No one wants to buy anymore. More renters, more demand, less supply. We saw this in 2008 and 2009. We saw this in 1989, and we're seeing it today, which we'll discuss a little bit later for different reasons. But rents go up. That means it's even more likely that someone's going to pay your mortgage for you. Renters don't care what your condo is worth on paper. There is not a renter on this planet who's going to say, you lost 23% in the market, buddy. I'm not going to give you that $2,200 a month rent. Scale it down 23% for me and we'll have a deal. It's not how it works, right? Renters pay the full market value of rents regardless of what your condo's worth on paper. This, I know you can't see the numbers, is your sort of amortization schedule over 15 years on your mortgage. It shows principal remaining, interest paid, and here's how those figures break down. By the way, we're assuming this at a higher interest rate than is currently exists and at a market crash. Keep that in mind. In the first 5-year mortgage term, you pay down $35,000. In the second 5-year mortgage term, you pay down $44,000. In the third 5-year mortgage term, you pay down $66,000. That's a total of $146,000, which your renters paid for you. You haven't paid a single dime of that. Even if you adjust for a couple months vacancy here and there, we saw that the principal contribution is $600. You can survive a couple months there. And the point is, if you've bought in one of those areas where rentability is that high, you won't have that issue. So after 15 years, your original down payment was $100,000, your principal paid is $146,000, and the amount you made on paper is $28,000. Your equity into this property is $274,000. What was your initial investment? It was your down payment, right? That's all. Did you put more cash into this? Yes, maybe for some closing costs, but that's pretty much what you paid. That means effectively, if you assume realtor costs and some of your other closing costs, in 15 years, to break even on your investment, you need to sell this condo for $160,000. Do you think you can get that? Pretty sure it's worth $427,000. I'm pretty sure we can get $160,000. The only way you're going to actually lose on your initial investment is if this property drops all the way down to $160,000 in value. We'd need a market crash of over 50%, 60% for that to happen. How's that for worst case scenario? I know it could be worse. We need to talk about the rental market, though, because a lot of what I'm saying is reliant on the fact that we're going to have this property rented. Anybody know how the rental market is? Great. Yeah, great. Yeah. Well, the Globe and Mail actually called our situation last year a national disaster. This chart from Statistics Canada shows some of the vacancy rates throughout the country in major cities. And Toronto sits over here at 1.7% vacancy rate. That is reported by the Toronto Star actually last year of being lower, having dropped to 1.1% vacancy rate. And that's despite the introduction of 20,000 new condo units into the GTA. Keep that in mind. How does that compare globally? Mexico City sits at 5.1%. Los Angeles sits at 3.3%. Chicago sits at 3.6%. San Fran sits at 3.8%. Manhattan, this may surprise you, 2.79%. We continue to see 100,000 newcomers come here every year. That's courtesy of the Toronto.ca city website. That creates a demand for about 34,000 new households a year, according to the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation. Of those 34,000, 11,000 households are renters. That's just new renters coming to the GTA. That's not existing renters. Do you know what this is? It's an Thank you. It's an apartment rental, right? They're actually specifically called purpose-built apartments. And in the GTA, last year, can you guess how many of these were built? Close. 1,100 units. That's not buildings, units. It's 1,100 total units built in 2014 across the GTA. Well, that solves our problem, right? We need 11,000 new rental product every year, but we built 1,100. That makes sense. It's having a ripple effect out there, and it's not just in Toronto. CMHC reported drops in 2014 of vacancy rates across Peel, York, and Durham from 2013. Halton went from 2.7% vacancy rate in 2013 to 0.8% last year. We need condos. And for more people than you can imagine, it's the only option out there. There's no rental apartments being built. GTA condo rents last year from the year before are up 4.4%. 4.4. Downtown rents are up 8%. That's a massive number. Okay, and some of you, if you're thinking, what about rent control? It doesn't exist for product built after 1998. It doesn't exist on condos. You give them 60 days notice and you have a somewhat decent reason, you don't have to follow the rent increase guidelines. A lot of people don't know that. But what happens in those areas, like downtown West, where all these, surely there's got to be some effect, right? You plop all these condos into an area, aren't we going to flood the market? How are people going to respond when this is actually built? Well, let's take a look at the objective evidence, shall we? Over here, this dark blue line represents completions. Completions. This is actually in the market as of 2014 in the downtown West submarket. That's a little area in the downtown area encompassing West Queen West, Liberty Village. Not a very big area. The year before, in 2013, we saw over 5,000. That's a total of almost 12,000 units to this tiny little area of downtown. Surely that must have messed with the figures. Let's take a look. The red line represents your rent figures. The blue line represents the spikes in inventory completions in these areas. What happened? I'll save you from straining your eyes. Rents went up. And every time there was a spike in the amount of product that was introduced to these areas, the rents did the same thing. They spiked. Something counterintuitive about that, isn't there? Our market is indeed in trouble. We have a shortage of rental condos in this city. If the market crashes, big if the market crashes, this problem will actually get worse. So, hey, if you own rental product down there, let's hope for a bit of a market correction, because that's just going to assure that you've got an investment that pays your bills. You're always going to have a renter. And the naysayers pretty much have it all wrong when it comes to this category. Condo investing is very unique, and those who get it really, really get it. It's very different, and I think a lot of the reason that people are scared of it is because they don't know enough about it. And they try and equate it to different investments out there. For example, a house. It's not a house. Okay. What's the average price of a detached home right now in Toronto? It's high. Okay. Probably went up since I started this presentation. Okay. It's really high. If the market crashes, can you rent it out? Maybe. Maybe a basement, maybe a second floor, maybe a third floor. How long is it going to sit on the market, though? Quite a while. A couple months, maybe. And if you get a year term, if you're lucky enough, what happens after that year? Is it bang, 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 right away you've got another renter? No, probably sit another couple months, right? It's not the same. Stocks, this is my favorite one. I've got some really good friends who are iBankers. And they're some of the smartest guys I know, but they are some of the dumbest guys I know. I've been showing a guy a house for 14 years. He makes $500,000 a year. He hasn't pulled the trigger because he's still waiting out the market. And his problem is that he can't disassociate the two. He analyzes stocks for a living. He underwrites big deals. And he can't separate this. Stocks, how do you make money? Generally speaking, you buy low, you sell high. Yeah, that exists for condos, but it's the worst way to make money when you're looking at an investment. We've got rent income, we've got equity. That's all you have with stocks. Rent income's very simple. You find a tenant for the condo, you collect the rent and you deduct the expenses. You keep the remainder if you're lucky enough to have any. Can you rent out a stock? Yeah, Tyrone, you can? We got to talk after, okay? Maybe I'm in the wrong field. And of course, there's equity gain, which is the difference between your current market value and the amount owing on financing. Can you finance a stock? What is this? Right, BlackBerry. What about this? These guys cost me a lot of money. What about these guys? If everybody remembers these companies, right? And you remember that in their stock performance, they've hit a couple bumps along the road. And what happens if you waited out the market with these guys? Especially the last one over here. These two. It's not a guarantee to recover. And the problem with stock investing is that these companies are all tied to performance, to human performance. And if the company doesn't recover from that, well, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't wait out the market. And the other issue is, I can't walk into my stockbroker's office and say, hey, Tom, I want to put 10 grand into stocks, but I only want to give you $2,500. Do we have a deal? Kick me out of his office, right? But we do this with condos all the time. We're only actually putting 25% down and we're financing the rest. But we're earning what? On the 100% of market value, are we not? The appreciation? I'm not putting 25% down on my condo, 100 grand, and then I'm earning property appreciation on 100 grand. In stocks, that's how it works, isn't it? You put down $10,000, you earn on $10,000. I can't put down $2,500 on $10,000 and earn on $10,000. Well, that's what we're effectively doing here with condo rentals. And the renter pays you 100% of the market value in rent. No renter is going to say to you, well, you only put down 25%, so I'm going to pay you 25% of the rent. It doesn't work like that. Real estate really beats the stock market. And I don't know if you're heavily invested in the stock market. I've personally decided I'm out. So all I've done is ever lose money in that place. I have bad luck with it. It's like plants. I kill plants too. Everybody is an expert in a couple fields in life, right? Golf. You have a buddy like that? You go out, even though they suck for some reason, they're giving you tips like they're Tiger Woods. Right? Same thing goes with love. You have a problem with somebody, you go out with for a beer with your buddies and giving you the worst advice on the planet. Well, there's no difference in real estate. It happens all the time in condos out there. I'm going to tell you what to watch out for because it is a hot pre-construction market, and some of the stuff going on out there is incredibly dangerous. There's seminars like this. You're given value. You're given information that you can use. That makes sense. And then there's a leap somewhere that's made. They win the confidence of the people attending, and then they have this opportunity or this showcase. Okay? Be sort of if I was to try and sell you some CDs right now. Okay, so or some information DVDs. Well, this is happening out there where they're showcasing some sort of a project, and they're saying, here's an example of everything I'm talking about. And people just have faith in the speaker, so they make that jump and they invest into this opportunity without doing any of the math. This is very, very dangerous. We need to step back, and you need to apply what you just learned into your potential investments. Watch out for this one, too. I love this one. Rental guarantees, or any guarantee. You know, a rental guarantee only means something if it's coming from somebody who can uphold the guarantee. Would you agree? And a lot of these experts who are personally giving you these rental guarantees have been in the business 3 or 4 years. There's absolutely no proven track record of them being able to deliver a rental guarantee at all. Such as them telling you, hey, I promise it's going to be rented. That's not worth the paper it's written on. The lack of math. if you're working with a sales professional who's not giving you stats, rent statistics from a particular area, resale information, and giving you those hard objective stats, you gotta find somebody else. They're not doing their job. Because when you break it down, and you do this right, it's night and day. Good investment, mediocre, bad investment. It's night and day. The hype. There's always some big new project coming out. And they take out all these ads and people post it all over Kijiji and say, this is the next hot project. I mean, we saw it happen with an area I mentioned earlier in 2014. The hype doesn't make you money. It doesn't make your investment perform any better. Be very careful for this. Just because your neighbor is buying it, it doesn't make it a good buy. Unproven builders. Anybody recognize this logo over here? Really hate how the person who got nabbed for it has the last name Cho, but this is what happens out there sometimes. I mean, this is one of the worst case scenarios where you actually lose your money, okay? But it's very common, and it's not announced on the news, when a builder just doesn't open up on a project. You don't find that out for many, many years down the road. You invest your deposits over the deposit schedule, and then you find out of the blue, oh, you're not building anymore. Well, you've just tied in your money for 3 years, and it's done nothing for you. And you've lost on 3 years of market appreciation. And then there's another issue of build quality. I mean, there's a whole long list of reasons why you need to be very careful of which builder you're investing into. You can't just invest into somebody who built great hotels, for example, and say, they're going to build good condos. It doesn't work like that. And the experts. There's some good information going on out there. But there's some really bad information going on out there. You sitting here now probably know more than most. And that includes some of these experts that are holding these seminars and information sessions. Be very careful because some of them are great speakers. They're captivating, they have charisma, they're able to show you some statistics on the market and win your trust. But at the end of it, they're selling you bad product. And do your own research. Be a smart investor. It's buyer beware. So the buyer must be aware. The number one advice I have that I'll leave with you is that you always need to keep learning. If I were to walk into a body shop knowing nothing about cars, I'm probably more in a situation to get ripped off than if I knew a little bit. It's kind of the same principle here. Learn as much as you can about pre-construction condos, and you'll be better equipped to know the bad information from the good. We've actually got from Plaza Corp, we've got Scott McClellan, the Senior Vice President. You may recognize him. He's been a guest speaker for many years on Hot Property. He's also he's featured in some of the press around the city to talk about the new condo development market. And Plaza Corp is one of the largest builders in the city. I'm gonna actually call up Scott here to say a couple of words. If we can give him a round of applause.
Thank you, Stan. That was a very informative discussion and a real benchmark for those that haven't really had the opportunity to take a look at the wonderful world of real estate with respect to investing, particularly in our Toronto market and particularly in the condominium market. Stan touched on the Greenbelt issues, how the intensification of our city is going up rather than out. And what's also happened, and the other statistic that was in his presentation, but maybe something that has to be highlighted, is when we're taking a look at condominium projects in the downtown core, and we're driving along and we see cranes of 30 and 40 and 50-story buildings, the interesting thing is there's probably only 350 or 400 units in those buildings. 50% of them are probably one-bedroom and dens, and then everything else is slightly bigger. When we drive past a single-family project that's out in Durham or in Peel or in the 905, the outskirts of the city, that have now been affected by our Greenbelt legislation, those homes are 3 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms and 5 bedroom homes that are housing and homes to 3.5 to 4 people, where a condominium in the downtown core is something like 1.5 persons per unit on average, and in some cases less in some projects across the city. Stan's absolutely right. Based on those numbers, 100,000 people a year coming into our city, an aging population, and a first-time buyer market that is now staying in the downtown core, we are going to have a housing shortage in this city real soon. I saw some numbers that RealNet posted for the federal government in recent months that is showing that we are going to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 million homes a shortfall throughout the GTA. And that would probably include areas from Burlington and Hamilton out past Durham into Bowmanville, even up to Peterborough. So that 407 extension and that rim around the Greater Toronto area. That is an enormous number. Our universities are strong. Our market is strong. We have a city that is continuing to strive to become a world-class city, and we're getting closer and closer to that goal. Housing has got to be paramount. Transportation has to be paramount. And right now, for a number of realtors that haven't had the opportunity to understand the growth patterns of our city and the product that's available for long-term investment, whether you're going to make a buying decision today and make a selling decision in 5, 6, or 7 years, or maintain it as a rental, you can't lose. The product is truly going to be the savior of the housing market in the GTA. One of the things that I wanted to mention for a lot of the people that haven't had the opportunity to meet with the new concept people that we've been dealing with since 1999, is just a little bit about how the process works. Stan talked about steps 1 and steps 2, steps 3, and in some cases that sort of margin between 3 and 4 in terms of the buying process. What Stan probably, and he did a great job, but the one thing that I want to emphasize, and the one thing that I want to make sure I drive home for Stan and his group and his realtors and the people that he's crystallizing a relationship with, is the relationship that they have with builders like us rather. The opportunity to get first in line and also be there during the process when we do have benchmarks to achieve with our lenders. Our relationships are the most important things we have. We make sure that Stan and every realtor that's in this room that deals with a company like Plaza Corp understands our values, understands that we will never be in a position to embarrass their clients, and for that, we expect them to be first at our door, and we make that process very easy for them. And we're not the only builder that they have a relationship with. As a matter of fact, the one thing that they've done over the years, and at least since 1999, back when I started working with John Cho and Michael Park and several other people that are here today, is that relationship has made us strong. It's made their clients incredibly happy. And not everybody has that opportunity to crystallize and to have that relationship with builders and do it in a very professional and strategic and almost family-like way that we've been able to build our relationship with this group of realtors that many of them are sitting out here today, and there's a lot of new faces that we certainly hope to see. So the relationship that realtors have with builders is probably the most paramount, most important thing that you're going to have for your clients. And they do a lot of homework. They're always challenging us on our product. They're certainly challenging us on our locations, on our build form, and certainly, and maybe the most important is how their customers are treated before, during, and after the process. And those are challenges that we have, and those are things that we continue to work on a daily basis. And Frank Sharippa, who's our Vice President of Sales, is on a regular basis working those relationships and maintaining them for your clients. So I just wanted to, when I was asked to get up and say a few words today, I wanted everybody to understand the importance of the relationship that we have and several other builders have with the new concept people. And now that they're with Royal LePage, that network is only going to expand, only going to get better, and only force us to continue to get better and grow as a company and as a relationship. Thanks again. Thanks, Stan, for having me come up.
Thank you very much, Scott. Appreciate it.